At a time when childlessness was considered a curse, Hannah's co-wife, Peninnah, decided to exploit Hannah's inability to have a child and make Hannah's life miserable. Hannah was so depressed she would cry and go without food. Nothing was enough because everything around her said she wasn't enough. Not even her husband's generosity could leave the reproach of childlessness, which Peninnah knew how to rub in really well. Elkanah's love wasn't enough to diminish the pain that Peninnah enjoyed inflicting on Hannah. But one day changed everything. Instead of weeping and starving as usual, Hannah decided to do something different. Instead of hiding away in shame, Hannah decided to step out. Instead of sitting in that provoking environment where her triggers were being pulled by a woman who didn't care, she decided to care for her well-being, enough to remove herself from that stifling environment. Instead of fixating on her and not being enough because of childlessness, she decided to shift her attention from her and her issues to someone else. Instead of focusing on Peninnah and all the horrible things she said and did to provoke her, she switched her focus to the only one who could help her. Hannah stood up from where she would fall down, crying and starving. She walked away and put some space between her and her vicious co-wife. She moved farther from the provocative triggers and moved closer to help. She turned her back to her issues and turned her face to God. She left the outer court where people will always be people and moved into the temple where God alone is God. Instead of crying about her helpless and hopeless situation, she fell upon God and cried directly into the ears of the Father that hears, because God is not deaf. She poured her bitterness into the mouth of a Father who can taste. She poured her pains into the palms of a Father who could feel. She laid her broken heart at the feet of the Father who has eyes to see. She talked to the Father who could speak peace into the storms raging in her lives. Hannah shifted her focus and changed her actions, and that changed her life and circumstances. That singular action addressed the root cause of her depression. That woman stood up from that spot and walked away a different woman who was not only okay, but enough despite her limitations. Something life-transforming transpired in that communion with God, so much so that even when the priest showed up, accusing her of drunkenness and misbehavior in God's house, this new person who had contacted something transformative in her time alone with God stood up to the priest as gently, as kindly, and yet as firm and as affirming as she could be. No, she was not going to be the punching bag anymore. Nobody should come pouring their crap on her anymore, because this person ain't taking them no more. It was not the same Hannah that crumbled at the altar that fateful day that stood up to the priest. That day, a depressed and sorrowful soul fell at the feet of God the Father, but a warrior stood up and walked away, joyful, hopeful, smiling, eating and celebrating like everyone else. The world will always wonder, why are you smiling? What do you have to smile about? But when you know, you know. When you have encountered God of the impossible, it doesn't matter that your situation still appears the same. You just know what you know, and you are okay with what you know. You find sufficiency in the one who alone is sufficient for you, and you feel enough already. The world can think and say and do what they want. You are not moved because of what you know. It was only a matter of time before Hannah's natural circumstances changed. But for her, the change happened at the altar. Her change started the day she chose to shift her focus and change her actions. Her change was rooted in a decision to change what she could, and God took it from there to change what she couldn't. How many times do we claim that we are waiting for God, whereas God is waiting for us to shift our focus and change our response? He's not expecting us to do too much, just a little that we can. If we can change what we can, God will step in and change what we can't. But we have to trigger that change. Trust me, our change begins with us. Our change is in our hands, not in God's or anyone else's. We choose what will stop and what should continue. And until we make those little changes, the mega ones await. What can you change today to trigger the dreams you have been expecting? What can you commit to do different today and every day going forward? God is waiting for you to kickstart the change. God is waiting for you to give him the opportunity to step in and do the impossible. Despite what others say, do, or don't, God is the only one who can make a difference that counts in our lives and circumstances. He alone has the final say, and he is ready, seeking for opportunities to help us. Will you open the door and let him in today? Independent and irrespective of what they think, do, say, or not, God is waiting on you to open the door and let him in. How can you open the door for God and help to come in and get you? Hannah could have lived and died in her situation if she had chosen to continue as usual. Her default response would leave her where she was stuck. But the moment she stood up and made the simple move to the altar, everything changed. Her life changed. Her circumstances changed. She still looked the same, but that woman was reborn inside, and it only took time for that internal transformation to show up on the outside. The town crier turned into a psalmist who wrote a beautiful song of praise and glory to this God who leads the lowly and helps the lonely. And here's Hannah's song in 1 Samuel 2, 1-10. My heart rejoices in the Lord. My horn is exalted in the Lord. I smile at my enemies because I rejoice in your salvation. No one is holy like the Lord, for there is none besides him, nor is there any rock like our God. Talk no more so very proudly. Let no arrogance come from your mouth, for the Lord is God of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed. The bows of the mighty men are broken, and those who stumbled are girded with strength. Those who were full have hired themselves out for bread, and the hungry have ceased to hunger. Even the barren has borne 7, and she who has many children has become feeble. The Lord kills and makes alive. He brings down to the grave and brings up. The Lord makes poor and makes rich. He brings low and lifts up. He raises the poor from the dust and lifts the beggar from the ash heap, to set them among princes and make them inherit the throne of glory. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and he has set the world upon them. He will guard the feet of his saints, but the wicked shall be silent in darkness. For by strength shall no man prevail. The adversaries of the Lord shall be broken in pieces. From heaven he will thunder against them. The Lord will judge the ends of the earth. He will give strength to his king and exalt the horn of his anointed. This is not the song of a victim who is not sure how her life changed. People who stumble into their blessing often stumble out of it because they don't know how it happened or how to manage and sustain it. This woman knew her victory was no surprise. Her song was not a jumble of words just so it could be said she sang a song. No, this is the song of a warrior, the song of a believer who met God in the valley of the shadow of depression and sorrow, of darkness, loneliness, and loneliness, and experienced the transformative change. This is the song of a warrior who pushed to to make the little change she could and watched God make the mega changes neither her nor anyone else ever could. This is the song of deliverance, not of depression, the song of victory, not of defeat. And this shall be your song if you will choose today to change your attitude and response, to turn toward God instead of against Him, to shift your focus from the problems and the people, even from yourself and your sorry situation, and turn it to God, the glory and the lifter up of the heads of everyone who turns to Him. Don't forget to subscribe and share this with family and friends. Be inspired. You are a star, and it's your time to shine.